Hey everyone, welcome back to the Movie Mates Review in the channel. I am Matthew, of course, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Now, last week we did episodes 1 and 2 of Hawkeye, which is the new Marvel Disney Plus show, and this week we've got episode 3, only a 6 episode mini series. I think you'd said last week, which is surprising given that we're halfway through the series already technically. So it's a real shame to see it at this stage because I'm loving it so far. I think you're the same, and I think that's the general audience consensus behind it as well. It seems to be really taking the world by storm, which is absolutely fantastic to see. So I'll pass over to you, Callum, to explain what this episode is about and what's been going on the show.
Yeah, I'm not 100% that there's been, official word from Marvel that it's 6 episodes. And, we do still have a lot to cover, seeing as we are halfway through, as you've said. We've still got the fingers crossed rumored appearance of Kingpin, which is, very, very overtly teased here. And then we've still got, the big Yelena Belova storyline, which from the teasers for this week's episode seems to be kicking off this week. Within this episode, we get a little look into the past of the character of Echo, who we were introduced to just in a glimpse at the end of episode 2. Uh, Maya Lopez is what she's named in the show at the moment. She hasn't taken on the Echo moniker. I know in the comics she has the power to replicate powers in the same way that Taskmaster does in the comics, not so much in the MCU. But here, we spend a lot of time seeing young Maya, and then we spend the back half just having a bit of a laugh, a bit of a fun time with some trick arrows. And then I feel like some stuff must have happened that I just don't remember because this came out 5 days ago. So and I watched it you know I watched it after work, so I was very very tired. So I may have missed some things throughout it. But all I can really remember is see Maya in the past. They escape, and then during their escape they use all these trick arrows, and then they eventually break into Kate's apartment. I mean, there is sort of the touching moment with Kate and Clint when he's on the phone to his son and she has to interpret for him. But that's all I really remember.
Strangely, I felt like this episode didn't really have a lot going on, and I would normally that would be a criticism, but I think for this show
Yeah,
it worked really well pacing wise. There's a lot of nice tender moments between Kate and Clint here, and of course you mentioned the Maya Lopez backstory. I think that's having the episode begin with that is really strong. Maybe a good third of the episode, a quarter of the episode is that Maya Lopez flashback stuff, and of course
a quality young casting, may I say?
it's actually her cousin.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was I
that's
was
why.
wondering. I was because I thought, what a resemblance.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I thought that, like, for some reason, I thought that, like, is that like her sister or a relative, or is that like, have they CGI'd the kid to look like her or something? But it's incredible. Yeah. I think that's her real life cousin. Yeah. The thing that's been taking the sort of comic book online community by storm this week is this mysterious hand cameo. We've definitely have talked a lot about Kingpin in previous episodes, and of course on our Spider-Man No Way Home theories and loads of stuff. It'd be interesting to see if that is him. I'm not sure if the characters have any relationship in the comics, whether they're known to affiliate with each other or not. But what are your thoughts? Do you think that is going to be Wilson Fisk? And if so, it seems like quite a strange way to tease it. I feel, but what's your genuine thoughts on that, Callum?
Yeah, so in the comics, after the death of Echo's father, Wilson Fisk does take her in as sort of an adoptive daughter, and then Kingpin makes his appearance in the Hawkeye My Life as a Weapon storyline, where he is the head of the tracksuit mafia, whereas I believe they're called the tracksuit Draculas in the comics. But there is a lot of source material evidence to the fact that he is the highest rung in this operation. I do think it would be a bit weird. Obviously there's a lot of questions to be answered, and there's a lot of rumors, some of which that I think we're not a huge fan of. The rumor that it is the sumo wrestler type of aesthetic for him, and
Indeed.
that they've just CGI slapped Vinny D's face on him. I'm not really a fan of that. More so, it's not that I'm not a fan of that look because it worked very well in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but I'm not a fan of them making such a huge change from the Netflix show that it's impossible for your head canon to associate them. Because even if there aren't objective, there's an objective evidence within the actual media that they're the same person. Across from Daredevil, the TV show. you want to pretend in your head at the very least. But I think that'll also be difficult if Maya Lopez was sort of taken in as an adoptive daughter, or that he had some kind of paternal connection to her from a young age, because by the point we meet Kingpin in season 1 of Daredevil, he sort of acts like he has nothing and he has no one, like no one's ever loved him, that kind of thing, and that's why Vanessa makes such a huge difference to his life. So I think that would be hard to carry over if this is the same guy.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There's a number of things that you said I wanted to touch on too. You mentioned Daredevil, of course. I think we'll later on in this review we'll touch on the Charlie Cox return, and obviously Spider-Verse you mentioned. I'd like to touch on that too, because I think a trailer came out today or the day before. On the Kingpin stuff, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think Daredevil season 3 really got us the comic book Kingpin, in my opinion. Apart from the white suit, which was the obvious one, you really got the sense that he was this huge like presence in New York. Like he pulls the strings, and we had seen glimpses of that in seasons 1, and then elements of, I think he is into briefly, isn't he? He's into a bit.
In the prison with Frank Castle.
Yeah, but season 3 is where he really takes off for me, and I just love to see him back. I think it makes perfect sense, and I think Vincent D'Onofrio, like just leave him the way he is. I think he's absolutely spot on, perfect. As humorous as it would be to see a huge comic book accurate Kingpin, I think Vincent D'Onofrio is more than adequate. I think he's excellent. Another thing in this episode too, you mentioned we kind of see we get the introduction of deaf Hawkeye, which I really like. I think that's an aspect from the Hawkeye miniseries with Kate Bishop that they brought into the show, and I think it makes sense. Like Hawkeye is it is like a street level hero, obviously no powers or abilities like that. So of course he's not invincible. So I really like to see that aspect of the character, and I think Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld, they really have a great charisma on screen in this short space of time that they've built, and it does feel to me a bit more like a Kate Bishop show, if I'm honest, mate. And I'm not angry with that whatsoever. I think Haley Steinfeld it could be like one of the new faces of the MCU. Like she's got the following, like off without the Marvel project. Really, she's a huge star in her own right. So I think I just can't wait to see her in more things. But one thing I really loved about this episode was, of course, the deaf Hawkeye stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's great to give him, a connection to Echo, aside from the fact that she's after him, or after Ronin at least.
Yeah, great point.
And I think we should talk about the fact that that's obviously not Hawkeye that killed her, that killed her father. I mean, though, it does seem like he probably deserved it. I mean, if he is, one of the head honchos of this gang, he's probably done some horrible shit. I was watching the episode and thinking like, fantastic father, probably a shit dude. So, probably deserved at least to end up in prison.
I think
So, I don't know that her grudge is warranted. But I would say with almost 100% certainty that it's not directed at the right person.
I think there's a lot of people saying that it's Tony Dalton's character Jack was dressed up as the Ronin there. I think that makes perfect sense, because in that scene you get the vibe in this episode that you want to feel sympathy for Echo. I don't think they're going to make her a full-blown anti-hero villain. I do think there is going to be an element of sympathy and empathy for the character that will transition her into somewhat of a positive character, maybe teaming up with Hawkeye and Kate Bishop later on in the show. I'd be interested to see, they do make mention to this like big boss in the tracksuit gang that isn't Maya Lopez. I mean, if it's not Kingpin, I'm struggling to see who else that could be. I mean, I guess they could, I don't know, could they bring back other characters from the Netflix shows, or even, I don't know, even minor characters from the movies? I mean, have you got any other thoughts if it's not Wilson Fisk?
I'm really not sure, because the uncle character that they reference, it has to be someone big, because you wouldn't do that off-screen reveal moment if it wasn't intended to be a reveal. And I just do feel like it was an unmistakable D'Onofrio laugh. But then I don't know why. I don't know why you bother to do that. I don't know why you just why do you do like a little bit of a tease and not just a full blown cameo? Or because the rumor really was that we can talk about it now that it's sort of mainstream discussion at the minute. but the rumor was that he would make his first physical facial appearance episode 4, and then he'd be a main player episodes 4 and 5, and we'll see whether that turns out, on Wednesday this week. But I just don't see why you would do something that acts as a tease for something that everybody already expected anyway. Because who else could that be? So like when we see him in the flesh for the first time, if we do, we'll just be like, yeah, they essentially showed that, last week. So like, we care that he's here, but why does it matter that they showed him like this?
That being said, if there's one thing the Disney Plus shows have taught us, it's not to get our expectations up. I mean, infamously, WandaVision had that with the what was it, the engineer or something like that. Early days, and that was a big letdown. So I think that this one was a bit more obvious for me, though, in the sense that you actually get a small glimpse of the character. So I mean, if it's not Vincent D'Onofrio, Kingpin, I'm not sure who else it could be. I'm praying that it is him, because I think that would just make the show so much better.
So I just have a question with you about the character of Echo. We seem to get a big glimpse into her past here, and then we get to see her in action a lot this week. And with the announcement that she's going to get her own series, do you think it's necessary? Like, I feel like we're going to see all that we need to see from her, and then I feel like she could just be a player in other stories. Like, do you think she's significant enough of a character?
I think the MCU have a big enough fan base for that to get viewing figures, but I don't think it'll hit anything close to what these Disney Plus shows are, for example. That being said, if people had said about years ago about doing a Hawkeye miniseries, I wouldn't have thought that would have done particularly well. But
he's always been an Avenger.
I know. I think the Disney Plus shows, to be fair, always, like, generally, I think they deliver. Like, WandaVision was maybe a bit disappointing towards the end, but I still really like that show. And if I'm honest, I think it will work, but it's not a character that I'm begging for a miniseries for, if that makes sense. I think as well, I just don't think the character's
it'll change my mind
pull.
if Kingpin is a main player in it.
Yeah, I think with Echo, you have to have major character cameos or appearances. Like, I don't think that character has a big enough fan base to warrant that kind of production. If that makes sense, I could be wrong, but I can't see what else you could really explore. I mean, I think they really smashed it here in this episode specifically. I don't. They didn't really leave me with any unanswered questions. I think they really did a great job. I mean, it's hard to say I think there's one character where I think, other than Kingpin, where that show could really work, and that's if they brought back Elektra or something like that. I think that would be extremely cool, because that's one of the negative drawbacks of Daredevil season 3 for me, and the fact that they really lazily explain that she must have died in the explosion or something. I think that was real nonsense. So I think if they brought back Elodie Young, that would be huge for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the saturation of the market is very high at the minute with superhero content.
Of course,
so definitely. For you to have your audience try to commit 6 to 8 episodes to a fairly unknown character, I think you're going to struggle to find an audience, except for people who watch everything, which is us.
It's us.
So I mean, we're going to watch it. And I think with the introduction of more and more characters, and the cries from the fans to bring back ones that we've already seen have nearly complete stories, I feel like at some point you're going to have to compromise and just do like a big team show at some point. I think if they did like
Defenders style, you think?
Yeah, if they just did like an 8 or 10 episode Marvel Knights series that that united
it's a good show.
Moon Knight, Ghost Rider, Blade, Daredevil, Elektra, that'd be pretty awesome. And Punisher, I think that would be, I mean, that if they executed that well, that'd be my favorite lineup of characters that they could do, really.
I really enjoyed the Daredevil Elektra romance. It's one of my favorites in the MCU. It's up there top 3 for me, actually. I really enjoy that part of season 2. Probably my favorite aspect of season 2, actually. But it's really interesting. It's something we were talking about off the podcast today, about the oversaturation with the DC CW universe and the amount of shows and the demand for fans to keep up with those projects. So I think I just worry for Marvel that they might be going down that route, in trying to get too much money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I think for me, the Disney Plus shows have worked a lot better than I thought they were. I think everyone would be agreeing with that. Not that anyone thought they're going to be bad, but I think they've really excelled. Whenever a new one comes out, mate, you know what they're like. That's the number one show in the world, really. People are talking about, other than maybe little, you know, other ones like Squid Games or something on Netflix. Disney Plus is right up there with Netflix for me now as those top two streaming platforms. And I think they've done incredibly well. So I wouldn't write it off, but it's not necessarily a show I'd be demanding, straight away.
Yeah, I mean, at least the majority of fan attitude towards the MCU and the content they deliver is positive.
Yeah, for
Whereas
sure.
I would say even most of the people who watch the CWDC shows don't like them.
I think Marvel's track record of projects is absolutely phenomenal. Like when, other than a few movies that have been like meh, like I've never really thought like recently there's been a massive stink where I think that is like an abomination. The one of the first ones I even remember being critically received to be bad was Inhumans, and even then I don't think it was as bad as some people made out. It wasn't great, but I think the MCU's track record is amazing. They've
Yeah,
got
I
it they've
mean,
got it right 9 out of 10 times, man.
yeah, I would say Inhumans is just like to the standard of like one of the worst episodes of Agents of Shield, but even that's like a begrudging watchable level. Where you go, oh, I don't hate this, but I mean, like, there's nothing real. There's nothing of any positivity here. It's just I can sit and watch it and not want to die. So I mean, I would say it was to that level. But then some seasons of Agents of the Shield are really strong. Season one, I'm not a fan of, but the rest of it really has some really high points.
Or I'll tell you what, I think these Disney Plus shows, like it's just got me more excited to see these projects like Moon Knight and She-Hulk. I mean, She-Hulk, I'm extremely excited for it because the Incredible Hulk and that character's mythos is one I'm really all about. I loved the old Ang Lee Hulk back in the day. It was one of the first films I watched as a kid. So naturally, that's a character I really gravitated towards. It's a really exciting time to be a Marvel fan, and of course later on in the episode review we'll break down the Spider-Verse stuff as well. If you're a Spider-Man fan, this year is going to be crazy with the Spider-Man 2 video game trailers and all that stuff as well. I mean, it's an amazing thing. Since we're kind of talking about the Marvel universe, did you want to talk about the Charlie Cox Daredevil stuff before we wrap up our thoughts on Hawkeye while we're here?
Yeah, sure. So, there was an official conversation with Kevin Feige over the last day. I wasn't quite sure when precisely it was, but he essentially said, I mean, there have been obviously some clickbaity headlines like Daredevil is here. We're gonna see Daredevil. Bloody hell,
all
guys,
over
prepare
like all
yourselves.
over the net at the
Uh,
minute. Yeah,
but
he's
then
right.
you click into the direct quote, and he says essentially, if and when you see Daredevil, he will be played by Charlie Cox. So it's that Charlie Cox is the MCU Daredevil if and when he appears. There are obviously rumors that he's going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. We'll know ourselves. We'll know in 9 days, and the Americans, I'm sure, will know as soon as we know as well, because it will be spoiled all over the internet and probably before we even see it. Let's be honest. Because I
Yeah.
would say like policing of piracy isn't really a thing here. Like when
No.
when you walk into a cinema, like I know in America, like they have like ushers that like go along the aisles, like shining a flashlight and stuff. But here, we're kind of just left to ourselves. Like imagine if someone wanted to take like a video of an end credit scene or something, they could get away with it. Something which I really do not endorse because I think spoilers fucking suck, and I think people who spoil it for other people, like I'm sure one in a certain number of people want to see that, on YouTube. Like they'll be like, oh my god, like someone's put up the end credit scene. I didn't even need to go to the cinema yet. But for a lot of people, it's going to be like a spoilery thumbnail, and then someone will share that on Twitter, and then it gets blown up, and then it just gets ruined for everybody.
Yeah.
For the sake of that one person who wanted to see that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, now that you mention it, we went to see House of Gucci the other day. There was no real way of stopping us just getting our phones out and just recording the whole film. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to play. It's impossible to place that because, you know,
Technology is really really grown. I
yeah,
mean, you could have like recording software in your glasses or something.
yeah. Honestly, like there's it's so difficult to police that. And let's say even if you do catch someone, by the time they get that, they're not going to delete it off their phone. Like, it's going to be saved somewhere. They're going to put it online. And of course, platforms like YouTube or Twitter, of course, that, maybe not Twitter actually, but platforms like YouTube, that's going to be taken down. That's going to be done for copyright. But like, if platforms like Twitter, even Facebook to a degree, I mean, that's how a lot of spoilers get around these days, isn't it? I mentioned to you that the Spider-Man No Way Home score and soundtrack leaked the other day. Luckily, Sony and Marvel were quick to shut that down on YouTube, which, to be fair, they're pretty good at. But I think there is a huge like spoiler culture these days, and it does, you can see, man, it forces studios to release trailers when maybe they didn't want to. I remember the No Way Home trailer infamously leaked the day before or something, and I'm not sure whether it was a coincidence that the actual trailer did release the day after, but I think it does put pressure on studios to get their act together to confirm spoilers, which is a real shame. I just I think shows with the Disney Plus shows, luckily, I've not been spoiled too much with Hawkeye or anything. There's nothing major that I've seen for this show, so it is like I'm going in fresh with it. But I think the comic book movie community sometimes does itself a disservice when all these spoilers surface, and don't get me wrong, like we're victims, we're guilty of that as well. Like we of course naturally we discuss spoilers, or not necessarily spoilers, but leaks and things like that, and trailer breakdowns, but everyone does it, and that doesn't make,
because at that point it's unavoidable.
And that doesn't make it for us like right to be doing it. But I don't think we've ever intentionally try to spoil something for anyone. We like to give a spoiler warning, and credit where credit's due. Channels like New Rockstars, they do provide spoiler warnings, but there are other channels on the platform who blatantly don't. It's a real shame.
Yeah, and it just really does annoy me. And I do seek out legitimate news, like casting news, and maybe like the runtime of a film, things like that. I do actively seek out.
Yeah, me as well.
But anything like reported by a quote unquote scooper, like I just don't want a part of. But that's again when it's avoidable. But then you click on Instagram and then it's there anyway. So you're like, oh God, why not watch a 10-minute breakdown of the news? If it's already fully out there, we could at least hear this person's opinion on it. So that I just wish I could go into every film fresh, but it's just not conceivable.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there, man. One of my favorite so back to Hawkeye, sorry. One of my favorite parts, if not my favorite part of this season so far, happened in this episode, and something that's pretty cool actually. It's the Pym arrow. We see Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, they're on the run from the tracksuit guys, and Hawkeye is going through his trick arrows with Kate, and you see some really cool ones like the USB one. I think there's like is there an acid arrow as well? There is some really cool ones, but the biggest one for me is the
arrow.
Yeah, putty arrow. The Pym arrow is definitely the coolest one so far, especially how they deal with that in the action scenes. I love that. What a great reference to have in there.
I absolutely love that, and it would have been a complete surprise had Grace Randolph not put it on her Twitter.
Yeah, there's another spoilers.
That would have been a real great experience. I mean, I was curious as to which way it was going to go, whether it was going to be embiggening or whether it was going to be shrinking. And it was, I mean, obviously the embiggening is it's a more offensive weapon. You maybe think, if it was smaller, it would do the kind of job that Ant-Man did to Iron Man's suit in Civil War. So I just wasn't sure which way it was going to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I think that one helped with spectacle.
Yeah, I think they made the right call there, 100%. Do you have anything more to say in the episode, mate?
Nothing else on this one, no.
No. Well, just to wrap up this little video, I wanted to talk to you briefly about the Spider-Verse trailer. We're on this Marvel discussion, so I thought that would now be a good time to mention it. Yeah, Spider-Verse 2. I say Spider-Verse 2. I didn't realize that they're going for like a part 1 and part 2 situation here. A big surprise to me. I'm not sure if that was a surprise to you either.
Because that's normally how you would split up the third one in a trilogy to make 4 films.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see that this is going to be quite an event film akin to No Way Home. Actually, what were your thoughts on it generally?
The Miles looks weird and old.
Yeah,
because
they've aged him up, haven't they?
Obviously, It's picking up right where they left off with Gwen appearing in his bedroom at the end of the first one. But it looks like they've tried to age him up, which makes sense because there probably is time between when everybody fucks off to their own universe and the start of this movie. But I don't think there was visually any passage of time between them going back to their own universes and that scene at the end of the film. So it looks I don't know. He looks like he's gained 2 or 3 years in seconds.
Yeah, Gwen's hair is a lot longer too. Coincidentally, played by Haley Steinfeld, I think. Yeah, I really love the vibe of this trailer. It's not edited like your normal trailer. This actually gives you a scene from the film and kind of combines it with the trailer later on in a sense. There's a couple things I wanted to mention. First being that I really hope Jake Johnson reprises his role as Peter B. Parker.
Desperately.
Desperately, because he was a real standout for that film to me. I think it would be crazy not to capitalize on that. I mean, I think everyone loved him so much. So yes, and then obviously in the trailer, Oscar Isaac seems to be playing Spider-Man 2099. Yeah, I mean, I wonder how they're going to play this event, because the part one
He looks
indicates
pretty beefy in that.
yeah,
Doesn't he?
yeah, he does. The animation style is obviously incredible. That's one of the standout of the first film, I think. It's a unique animated film, and it's one of my probably one of, if not my favorite animated film ever. It's that good for me. I love it so much. I mean, this event, where do you think it's going? Because I mean, part one and part two would suggest it's pretty major.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that a lot of the characters that we saw in the first film are going to be in it, or at least I don't think they're going to be a big deal. I think they would be silly not to capitalize on Jake Johnson. I mean, they probably went into production on this before the first one even came out, so maybe if they haven't heard the reaction, the fan
Yeah,
reaction to the first one, they might not realize what a winner they had with Jake Johnson. But I think despite it being an incredible origin story for Miles Morales and that being an amazing character to introduce, the one that I really was left with a big impression of was Peter B. Parker. So I would be disappointed not to see him again. I think Spider-Man 2099 is obviously going to be a big presence, and it seems like they maybe have a bit of beef to start off with, which is weird because he was traveling across the Spider-Verse, in the post-credit scene of the first one. So it's not like he would be like, oh, who's this guy and why is he wearing my costume or something, something silly like that.
mm.
Obviously he has a comprehensive knowledge of the fact that there are other Spider-Men out there. So it's not like it's going to be an issue of mistaken identity or anything. So I have no idea why they're fighting. But I'm obviously very excited to see.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see as well if they have a soundtrack or a specific song to market the film. Obviously, Sunflower was the major one with the first Spider-Verse, and I mean it was probably the biggest song of the year at that stage. I love that song. So I'd be I'm just intrigued to see where it goes. The animation style is incredible. The soundtrack and the musical composition is always great. So yeah, it was a really good first look. But yeah, I don't have anything more to discuss. Callum, anything from yourself?
Nothing else.
Well, thanks very much for your time, and thank you very much, viewers, for your time. I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion of Hawkeye and other things, a Marvel discussion, really. Yeah, we hope you guys are all well. Hope your family and friends are all safe and well too. Take care, everyone, and see you later.
Bye bye.